We begin tonight with the return of President Muhammadu Buhari, who has been out of the country for a 10-day vacation in London. The president's aircraft touched down this evening at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, to a grand welcome by the army and a guard of honor mounted to signify his return to the Grand Commander of the Federal Republic. He departed Nigeria for the United Kingdom on August the 3rd after handing over to Vice President Yemi Osinbajo in acting capacity. The president is expected to preside over a security meeting at the villa on Monday. He also vowed to continue his fight against corruption. In an interview, the president says that he is going to send to jail more of the thieves responsible for the nation's economic woes.
The presidential aircraft taxis to a halt at 6:45 p.m. On hand to receive the president are the service chiefs, chief of staff, inspector general of police, governors and other government officials.
I look well or not? Thank you very much.
Amidst fanfare by support groups, the president heads to the presidential villa. In a separate interview at his residence, President Muhammadu Buhari warns that he will send more thieves responsible for Nigeria's economic woes to jail.
We are going to jail more of the thieves, that brought the economic problem to the country. I think this is being expected of me, and I will do it.
The president also reacts to the defections by politicians and victories from recently conducted National Assembly by-elections.
Let people choose what party they want to belong to, but let them make sure that they have empowered their constituencies by educating them, voter registration, and making sure they have got their permanent voters cards, and that they use their right as Nigerians to vote whoever they like across ethnicity and religion. This is the beauty of democracy in Nigeria. This is what I'm hoping to see.
Other government officials present are optimistic that the president's arrival will bring solution to many of the issues.
There are quite a lot of issues. We are in a state of, not an emergency as such, but there are several issues that we need to deal with as a nation as we get to the end of the first term of this administration. The president will bring his weight to bear on that. And he has always been very appealing when it comes to issues of national importance.
And if Mr. President is coming back now, he's going to continue, because government is a continuum. He's going to continue to do his good job that he's doing for this country, of stabilizing the country, of ensuring that there's more security, of ensuring that the economy continues to flourish.
The president is expected to resume official duties on Monday, presiding over a security meeting at the presidential villa. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has joined other world leaders to mourn the passing of the former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan. In a phone call to the President of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, President Buhari said that Nigerians and ECOWAS members countries share in the deep loss of Ghanaians, considering the strategic influence of the former scribe in global affairs and his vision for the repositioning of the West Coast and Africa. The president also said, quote, as the first elected staff of the United Nations to lead the World Organization and first African to win the 2001 Nobel Peace Prize jointly with the United Nations, Kofi Annan's humility, nobility and love for humanity sets him apart for global greatness, achieving recognition and commendation for the reforms of the United Nations bureaucracy and multiple interventions to bring peace to the world. End of quote. President Buhari said that Annan's origin and home will always be traced to Ghana, but his exceptional leadership roles, humanitarian spirit, and contributions to global peace and development will remain indelible in the history of the entire world, especially the efforts to combat HIV and AIDS in Africa and launch of the United Nations Global Impact. Well, there are indeed many parts of the late UN scribe Kofi Annan. And to discuss this further, I'm now being joined by a former Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Chief Emeka Ayoko. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on the news at 10 at this time. You served as the Commonwealth Secretary General at the time that Kofi Annan was UN Secretary General. What was it like working with your counterpart in the United Nations?
Well, Kofi Annan and I worked very closely together. He became Secretary General of the United Nations almost 7 years after I had been in office as Commonwealth Secretary General. But he and I worked together for the remaining 3 years before my retirement in the year 2000. By Kofi Annan's death, the world, and in particular Africa, has lost a true global statesman and peacemaker. He left indelible legacy at the United Nations. I mean, his achievements as UN Secretary General are many, and if I may just mention a few. Kofi, when he became Secretary General, effected the most far-reaching reform of the United Nations Secretariat administrative structure. And he, as Secretary General, led the movement that resulted in a global summit that adopted the Millennium Development Goals in the year 2000. And Kofi, against the background of the genocide in Rwanda and in Srebrenica in Eastern Europe, saw to it that the UN General Assembly adopted a very historic resolution named Responsibility to Protect. And the purpose of this resolution was to empower the global body to intervene in countries where populations face a serious threat of genocide or serious abuse of human rights. And Kofi Annan also brokered peace in many parts of the world. Some successfully, others not so successfully because of the intricacies of the issues he had to deal with. For example, he was in Myanmar, perhaps popularly known as Burma, to deal with the conflict between the Buddhist majority and the Rohingya Muslim minority. That was not a successful trip, but the world applauded him for his effort there. And in Nigeria, Kofi Annan and I came together in 1998 at the invitation of the then head of state, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, to discuss how the United Nations and the Commonwealth could contribute to Nigeria's return to democracy, which happened the following year. And of course, most recently, at the 2015 national elections, Kofi Annan came and joined me in chairing the workshop that produced the Abuja Accord, which committed the presidential candidates, all of them, including the incumbent president, Jonathan, and the aspirants that included General Buhari, as he then was, to commit themselves to violence-free campaign, and more importantly, to accepting the results of the elections. So,
if I may come in here, my apologies. If I may just come in here, because you've had a long-standing relationship with him, one that is most commendable for that matter. But how soon do you see another leader of his caliber at that global body emerging from Africa? Is it probable?
Well, it's not going to be easy to replicate Kofi Annan in New York at the United Nations, because he rose from the ranks of the United Nations to get to the top of the organization as Secretary General. There are not many Africans waiting for that sort of position, but of course, Africa has very promising younger diplomats who will, I am sure, in due course, attain the highest offices, both at the United Nations and at the Commonwealth, which so far I have been the only African Secretary General.
Now, he was also credited, as you said, with being sort of the brainchild for the Millennium Development Goals, as he was also credited with some of the most remarkable changes in the United Nations, compelling the US, for instance, to pay a backlog of debts owed the organization and raising funds for a number of United Nations projects. But there were a few hiccups in his career also, like the invasion of Iraq and the genocide in Rwanda, both of which were acknowledged by the United Nations. Now, how much did all this impact on his achievements?
No, I think that in Iraq, for example, it was known that he advised against the invasion of Iraq by the United States and United Kingdom. He was one leader who called the invasion illegal. That was to his credit. In Rwanda, he was, at the time of the Rwanda genocide, the Under-Secretary General and head of the DPKO, the United Nations Department for Peacekeeping Operations. Well, he himself subsequently admitted that he could have done more at the time to...
Chief, I'm afraid that that's the much we can have with you at this very auspicious time. We do sincerely thank you for sharing your thoughts on this rather unfortunate and difficult demise of the United Nations, former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan. Chief Emeka Anyoko, many thanks indeed. In part two, after the break, another tragedy averted at the Otedola Bridge end of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. We'll tell you what happened. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.